Hi guys, welcome back to our channel. If this is your first time, I'm Elsie and this is
Tony.
Okay, so this week we're talking about perspectives.
Yeah.
Right. What would you say perspectives are?
Well, a sort of a point of view, if you like, but it's more than just a point of view on one thing. It's maybe the perspective we have either on life in general, certainly on individual subjects.
Yeah.
And depending on where we're looking from, we see things in a different way. We absolutely do. For example, if I hold up my hand just now, if you're looking from that side, you see one aspect. If you were looking from this side, you see something completely different. Both of views are accurate, both are honest, but they're totally different. And if we want to get a true picture, we really need to try and see both sides. Now, maybe that's a simplistic example, but there you go.
I mean, I think it's very realistic because, like, if there was an issue, and then you were only looking, you were only looking at it from like one perspective, then you can't get like the full picture. And then how can you draw a conclusion from just looking at one aspect of the issue? Now, I get that in order to like draw a meaningful conclusion for certain topics, you need to like take into consideration different perspectives. But would you say that perspectives matter all the time? Now, I know it's a strange question, but then I ask this because, like, at which point do we let perspectives go and then realism sets in? Because say if someone raped someone,
right,
and then are you going to look at the perspective of the rapist to make it, say you were a judge, and then it was like a 4-year-old child, and then his perspective on it is that he's a man, and he was like, and men just he's just horny or something like that.
you're getting on dodgy ground with a horrible example, if you don't mind me saying.
It is a horrible example.
Yeah.
But I'm just I was just thinking, like, are there times where you just, I get that this is where you're coming from, but this is the, is there a time when you just have to draw the line? Like, I get that this is where you're coming from and that's where you're coming from, but this is just the right thing to do.
Well, how should you say? It still doesn't stop you, if you like, taking on board the perspective of the other person. It doesn't mean that we have to agree with that person's perspective. Now, using this horrible example that you gave just now, the judge in that case could quite reasonably say, I'm sorry, whatever temptation you were under, whatever pressures you were under, whatever you suffered as a child yourself, taking all that into account, what you've done is not justifiable. We cannot tolerate that in our society. And, not only is it against the law, it's also morally reprehensible, It's bad. So there's nothing to stop the judge saying that, and nothing to stop the judge saying, for whatever you may have suffered in your life, which has brought you to do such a horrible thing, I'm sorry for that, but this has to be stopped. We cannot allow this behavior. We have to protect innocent children. So it's not that you don't recognize that somebody who has had a bad childhood, maybe been hurt or abused themselves, not given any proper upbringing, not given any proper example, fill their mind with rubbish all the time. If they've watched things increasingly violent, increasingly sexualized as a form of entertainment, then it can quite easily be that a person, especially then if they couple that with an excessive drink or drugs, can do something horrible, which they might not normally have done, But at the end of the day, yes, a person they cannot justify what they've done on the basis that that's just the way I am,
So in our world today, right, like, do you think there are certain contemporary issues where, like, where you realize that people just have very simplistic views without taking into consideration other people's perspectives. And I think one example that would come to mind, because you're very passionate about it, would be the Russian war. Yeah, because everyone's perspective on it would be like people are dying.
Yeah.
And like, well, the war should just stop, and then Russia is just making this go on for too long. But do you think that in this particular situation there are like different and very, very important perspectives on this issue, like the Russian war?
Well, the different perspectives on every issue, but in this particular case, I don't want to sort of defend any of the bad things, the atrocities that have been done by Russian troops in Ukraine.
Yeah.
What I'm, from my perspective, against is that our, if you like, the UK and the USA and all the sort of Western powers saying that Russia has undoubtedly invaded Ukraine.
Yeah.
Russia undoubtedly has done some horrible things in Ukraine. However, it shouldn't, the finger being pointed at Russia to say that they were not provoked and they just decided to invade Ukraine. That isn't true. Because they were provoked. There were many promises made to Russia which were broken. Those promises, if we regard ourselves as custodians, if you like, people, proponents of truth, we shouldn't be making promises which we don't keep. We shouldn't have made promises to Russia.
Yeah.
And why did we do that? I mean, even Angela Merkel admitted the only reason we made those promises was to buy time so Ukraine could build up their armed forces. That's a terrible thing to admit, you know?
Yeah.
And the crimes, if you like, that have been committed by the West as opposed to Russia are tremendous. What about the Western powers, USA and UK in particular, invading Iraq, 1 million people dying, under false pretext that there were supposed to be weapons of mass destruction? Look at the death and destruction that was there.
Yeah.
Now, okay, it's not a case where what Russia doing is right because of that.
Right, yeah.
But what real ground do we have for sort of picking a side as we've done and demonizing one side? We really, really don't. So that's, for what it's worth, that's my perspective. But I think that's who we are.
No, yeah, it's quite, and that's one of the main importance of like looking at different perspectives, because like a lot of times you're just like, oh, is it right or is it wrong?
Yeah.
Right? Like, are people dying or not?
Yeah.
Right? But then even in international law, there are times when like you I wouldn't say necessarily violates people's human rights, but then you will take away people's freedoms for like a greater good.
Yeah.
So you can't necessarily look at the little picture and go like, oh, are people dying or are people dying, and say like just generalize it and say what Russia is doing is wrong or what Russia is doing is right. So obviously people have different perspectives on that.
And certainly from a Ukrainian perspective,
exactly,
they're, many of them feel they're fighting for their country, their independence, and one can't blame them for that. But of course, in that particular situation, there's a complex situation because so much of Ukraine, if you like, is Russian-speaking. Ukraine itself has been part of Russia for so long. And yes, these borders in all nations tend to get redrawn over the years anyway,
Yeah.
And how far back do we need to go to sort of, restore what is now the USA, restore that to the native Indian population, if we want to go back to that. What do we do in Britain here? Because there's been the Norman conquest, okay. What are the Romans before that? How far back do we go to draw the lines to say, well, this is
where
authentically what it should be?
It should be, yeah.
And one is on a practical level, it's not going to happen, and secondly, would it necessarily be even desirable? Because so many of the things through history, they've had a bad aspect, but they've also brought good into many people as well.
Yeah.
Apart from the British, I think sort of spread the idea of parliamentary democracy and taught everyone cricket. I mean,
Yeah.
But there has been, and human progress has sort of benefited in some senses from this push. Yes, there's been some horrible, brutal things done on the way. Slavery, of course, being one of the most horrible and brutal.
Yeah.
But of course, it wasn't, for what it's worth, it wasn't an invention of the West. The West used it, but it certainly wasn't an invention. Slavery was being used for thousands of years, that doesn't make it any better. But, it's because nowadays there seems to be the thought in so many circles that slavery was something which sort of white people foisted on the black. And yes, they did. But, because there weren't too many white people enslaved by black, so it has to be the white people are definitely in the wrong there. But they didn't invent that. They took over that practice from many, many, many generations of people who are doing that before. And thank God in most countries now that has been sort of outlawed. But
what would you say shapes individual perspectives? Like, what are some of the things that would necessarily shape anyone's perspective?
An individual's perspective, one's own culture, belief, upbringing. Now, some of these things are actually tied together in terms of the way you've been upbrought.
Yeah.
The way you've been brought up. The way you've been brought up, to some extent, depends obviously on the perspective that your mother and father have, the perspective of the society, the matrix in which you were raised. But and then as to how much of that you've accepted as being right or for you, or how much you've rebelled against it,
Yeah.
So we've hardly got out of sort of school yet, and all of a sudden there's so many different ones. But and then the other thing which can affect our perspectives is how much we personally have suffered or gained from a particular situation.
Yeah.
If we're gaining, if everything is going well for us, we're earning well, we tend to feel more quite content. I have that kind of, on the one side, a bit defensive, that we want to defend that against others, but also I'm quite glad to have it. If on the other hand, our experience has been that of hardship and poverty, of oppression, we're naturally likely to feel a bit more
cheated.
Cheated and antagonistic, and sort of, generally sort of willing to sort of, how should you say, rebel, to sort of push against the pressures that we've been put under. But if we have personal perspectives, even sometimes, because we know people who've had horrific lives, can still also, some of them have an amazing peace inside themselves. And equally, people who are living very comfortable lives with everything in their favour. Good looks, money, good relationships, good everything, and still not at peace inside themselves. And that's quite interesting, really.
Yeah.
Because you would think, well, why? Why can't you be at peace? Because there's something inside of us, I think, that we need satisfying to give us peace. We need the other things as well. Sure, whether it's food, shelter, clothing as a start. But some things are necessary, and other things aren't necessary. We just would like them. To use the word, likes. We don't need approbation on social media.
No.
We really don't. We don't need this. We don't need... How many things do we actually need? When it comes down to food, shelter, clothing, in terms of the physical needs...
Yeah,
that's it. And at a fairly basic level as well. And we do ourselves with a little bit less in the way of some of these things about for us. We do ourselves more good. But yeah, we need very little of that. And then, okay, we need education if we want to develop as human beings.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, now there, of course, is a whole lot of perspectives as to what the purpose of education is.
Yeah.
Is it to help us be good producers, to fit into the system? Is it to teach us to be free thinkers?
Mm-hmm.
To prepare us for the afterlife? You know, what is the purpose of education? Who should decide what kind of education a child gets?
Yeah.
The parents, the state?
Yeah.
You know? And I mean, to say all these are perspectives that different people bring to have influence not only on their lives, but on the lives of others as well. And very often, probably more on the lives of others than themselves, because it's easier to criticize or tell other people what to do than to tell ourselves what to do.
Yeah. Yes. Like, on that point, I was just going to say, when I asked what kind of things do you think shapes one's perspectives, and you were saying someone's culture and beliefs and their upbringing, and these are really these are really strong, like, these things that you mentioned, like, these are things that have very strong holds on your life, like, even without realizing it. Like, you don't notice that maybe the way your parents behaved when you were little is going to shape how you behave when you're older. And it has to take a very conscious effort to maybe behave differently. And you might not even realize that you're behaving like your dad or your mom. But yeah, definitely. These are like, if I give an example, I remember when I would be home and like just lying in bed, and then my mom would just be like, "Why are you just lying there not doing anything?" And in my mind, I'm like, do you feel uncomfortable when I'm relaxing? Like, do you have a problem with it? Now, fast forward, just like 2 years ago, we had my niece visiting, like my little niece visiting, and she was like 10 years old or something, and she was taking a nap or something, and I'm passing by her bedroom, and I'm like, why are you just sleeping?
Get up, you lazy
Do you have nothing to do? Is there nothing for you to do?
And all of a sudden you thought,
But
oh my
like,
God,
yeah, and I'm like,
mother.
oh my God, I just turned into my mom. but yeah, what do you just because these kind of things have strongholds on us, like, what do you think are some of the things we can do to be more accepting of other people's perspectives? Because these things have such strongholds on us, like, you definitely feel like, yeah, the way I'm behaving is definitely the right way,
Right?
like, do you get what I mean? It's like, but obviously I'm sure there's certainly better ways of doing things than the things that you've done for like maybe 40 years of your life or something like that. But it's a bit difficult to accept that, oh, how can what my parents taught me be wrong? And then what my parents are the best. They're like, they're like, they know everything, and it's not possible.
And they're watching this program.
And they are watching this program. So do you get what I mean? Like, I think it's a humility bit as well, like, to realize that sometimes there are better ways of doing things, and worse way of doing things as well. So how do you find a balance between not losing yourself, but also being accepting of other people's perspectives, and also being, as human beings, being able to constantly change, in a positive way. Yeah.
Well, I was going to say by not being scared of change in the first place, but that is maybe a simplistic thing to say, because there's some changes that obviously we wouldn't welcome, wouldn't wish to have.
Yeah.
The main thing, I think, really, going back to the perspective bit, is to be willing to try and understand where the other view, where the other person is coming from, but to understand it from their stance,
Yeah.
from their viewpoint, not from ours. Go back to the hand here. I must try and understand what you can see in the way that you can see. And to do that,
Maybe come
what
and
do I
stand.
have to do?
Maybe
I have to change when I'm standing
Yeah.
to come and stand where you stand. And then I can see, okay, now having seen my own viewpoint before that, I've now seen it from your point.
Yeah.
Now, okay, now I can make some kind of a balanced decision. I might come to the decision, wow, I wish I'd known both your viewpoint earlier on, because that obviously makes more sense.
More sense.
Now I'm
yeah.
using my own, we're using our gifts, if you like, of intellect,
Yeah.
education, we're using that to make a judgment. Of course we have to make a selection.
Yeah.
On the other hand, I could turn around, I may well feel you've been misguided most of your life, and I'm really pleased that my position has been validated by that. Or we might feel that, okay, that so many elements of your viewpoint are accurate, make more sense.
Yeah.
I incorporate them, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah. But,
Yeah.
but this is a good and useful, and how should you say, peacemaking. It sort of leads to all sorts of good things, this kind of process, as opposed to just shutting out the other view because this is not what I believe, that's it, you know?
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, yeah, we do have to make to make a judgment call at the end of the day on all perspectives, to keep one of my favorite authors, a guy, G.K. Chesterton, said, it is good to have an open mind. And the purpose of having an open mind should be like having an open mouth, because he used to like his food as well. He says,
As well.
he said the purpose of an open mind should be like an open mouth, and to close it on something solid. If you are going to close your mind on any particular issue, make sure that it's right.
Wow.
Just
yeah.
as if you're going to close your mouth on something, well, make sure it's something decent to eat rather than something which is poisonous or unpleasant or whatever.
Yeah.
And yeah, I think that's makes sense.
That is a really great note to end on.
Yeah.
Yeah. If you've watched to this point, I'm guessing that you're enjoying the program. So kindly like, comment,
share,
subscribe.
Yeah.
And until next time, it's bye for now.
Bye.
If you like this video, kindly like, comment, and subscribe. You can also find us on other social media platforms, on Twitter at Talk with Tony and on Instagram at talkwithtony.live. Don't forget, live, laugh, and most importantly, love. Watch out for the next video. It's bye for now.